started my new job at Will Rogers Airport. I say new, but I was really just moved to a different airline and working in the same ramp agent position. Now, I have to tell you that I have a crippling fear of heights, and my least favorite part of being a ramp agent is when I have to climb in a cargo bin on a rear loading plane because it's about 20 feet off the ground. This particular night was a strange mix of a few factors, which created an uneasy feeling. To start with, it was raining, and it wasn't just lightly raining, it was pouring down rain, with a few scattered lightning flashes and random power surges. Now, a little background on my airline. Every now and then we have to transport dead bodies in those cargo bins, and this was one of those occasions. And tonight was my lucky night apparently, because my manager told me I was throwing this plane. For those of you who don't know, throwing means I will be pulling the cargo out of the plane. It was the last plane for the night and it wasn't very much cargo, besides the body. My co-worker John pulled the ramp loader to the plane and raised it up so I could walk up to the conveyor belt to enter the bin. About 4 other co-workers came over with a baggage tug for the cargo. I say to everyone in a louder than normal tone because the rain was loudly smacking the metal shell of the airplane, "I hope you all are ready. I'm not trying to be in there all night." John laughed and said, "Don't worry about it. Maybe you'll make a new friend in there," in reference to the body. I didn't think it was funny, but I chuckled and told him to shut up and get a move on it. I climbed into the small cramped space and sat in the bin as far from this human-sized white cardboard box as I could, and pulled my phone out of my pocket to select a music playlist to listen to while I threw the bin. I found a good one and started working. To give you an idea of what I'm dealing with, the conveyor belt moves at a snail's pace and you have to wait until they scan each individual package, so I can't just throw them as fast as I want to get out of there early. About 10 minutes into it, I'm getting closer and closer to this box and my music stops playing all of a sudden. Now, I've had earbuds that short out when they get wet, so in the front of my mind, I automatically assume that the rain somehow got on them, and I just need to shake a little water off of them. But when I checked, they were bone dry. I then checked Spotify to see if it was a glitch or a problem with the app, and that's when I noticed I had an unread text message. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, did I get a notification and forget in the midst of my rap music-fueled baggage handling? You see, the way my phone is set up, when I get a message, it will tell you who it is from, but it won't display the message. The message was from an unknown number, which was odd, because very few people have my number to begin with. I hesitantly clicked the notification to read the message, and all it said was hi. I sent a text back saying, hey, who is this? My phone displayed that whoever sent the message saw mine immediately after I sent it. I waited, and no response. After a few seconds, I got a little annoyed and started my playlist back up and got back to work. Shortly after, there was a crash of thunder that was so loud it shook the plane, and it made me jump at first, but I quickly realized what it was and resumed working. Then I noticed the conveyor belt wasn't moving anymore. I yelled to John, "What the hell's going on out there? Why did it stop?" John replied, "Damn thing ran out of gas. We're going to take this load of cargo to drop off while we get another loader over here. Sit tight." I think to myself, where the fuck else am I going to go? About a minute later, it got cold. Like, I could see my breath cold. I wrote it off as just a cold front and reached over for some stranger's luggage to lean on while I wait. As I look over for a bag to grab, lightning went across the sky, and I saw a quick flash of a little boy. He was maybe about 11 or 12 years old, and he was sitting on the white box, staring at me with this eerily happy smile, and his head turned slightly to the side. As soon as I laid eyes on him, my heart sunk and I froze, never taking my eyes off that box for what felt like hours. Due to my heightened sense of alert, I was startled by the replacement conveyor belt starting up right next to the plane. As soon as it turned on, I darted to the moving conveyor belt, crawling as fast as I could, trying to keep my balance and from panicking at the same time. I hit the ground and looked at John and said, "Nope, I'm done. You're going to have to go in there now." I didn't want to explain exactly what I saw, but John knew something scared me shitless. He asked me, "What's wrong? Who was it?" I stuttered and walked away before I could say anything. Then I got a new text message notification that I heard loud and clear this time. A response from the unknown sender saying, "It's your new friend." We were on a long flight from South Africa to Amsterdam. This happened in the middle of the flight, when the lights were turned down, and the flight attendants were all settled in their own areas at the front and back of the plane. My husband was sitting on the aisle, trying to sleep, when he felt the brush of hair on his arm. He also felt his seat shake and heard a loud clunk as if something hit the floor next to him. We both looked down to the aisle and saw a man lying face down, having fallen and hit his head on the metal arm of my husband's chair. He wasn't moving, so my husband shook him and started to talk to him, while I frantically pushed the call button. After a few seconds, the man started to move, but it became obvious that he hadn't just tripped and hit his head. It was something seriously wrong with him already. He looked at my husband kind of blankly and just shook his head to the questions we were asking him. Meanwhile, absolutely no one was responding to the call button, and the other passengers were pressing theirs too. All of a sudden, the man vomits down in front of himself and just sits there. My husband got up and had to go through 2 cabins to the front plane to find an airline attendant. The man was slumping over and vomiting again by the time they got back, still not moving other than to throw up. Finally, they get an announcement for a doctor over the intercom, and 4 or 5 people were crowded around the man for the next 10 minutes. Then he was moved into the bathroom directly behind us. Because of all of the commotion, we couldn't see if the man came out again. But there was more unsettling noises coming out of the bathroom. No announcements were made, and the plane landed a couple hours later. Someone had put big thick strips of tape across the bathroom doors to keep it closed. Now it's very possible that that man was eventually alright, and they moved him back to the seat and taped up the bathroom because he vomited all over the place. But I saw that man's face, and he was absolutely completely out of it, and his skin was very gray. This by far was the scariest plane incident for my husband and I, because we're still not sure if we were witnessing a man's death. And I still don't know if I was imagining the small clunking sounds I thought I heard coming from the bathroom at the end of the flight when there was turbulence. On December 15th, 1966, in California, an airplane crashed on top of me. I was 12 years old, walking home from the school bus stop with 2 14-year-old neighbor kids. Suddenly there was a pop behind us. I and one of the other boys turned around and saw a fireball falling out of the sky, heading directly for us. We took off running, and 4 houses later, we turned up to my house and hid behind a brick wall. The other kid wondered why we were running, so he turned around, saw the now closer fireball and ran to his left. In a state of panic, he tripped and fell behind a garage. What happened was the pilot of a Navy A-4 had run into some trees after a botched landing approach. He ejected and landed 1 block over, bouncing off a camper roof and landing on the grass. Thankfully, he was safe, but the engine rotors of the plane sailed through the neighborhood like frisbees. One of them even came 6 feet away from my head. They went through cinder block walls like they weren't even there. In the end, 4 garages were burnt to the ground. A pregnant woman across the street panicked, causing her to run out her back door and climb over a 6-foot-high cinder block wall to get away from what was already over. She scratched her hand in the process. Other than that, there weren't that many casualties. Now, in spite of all this crazy action, that wasn't what really scared me, because I was too busy reacting and trying to get myself in a safe place. The real fear came later, because that night, I woke back to where we had first heard that popping sound, which I later found out was the pilot ejecting from the plane. That's where I saw a huge 4-foot deep, 15-foot across hole in the sidewalk. Just the thought of what would have happened if that fireball plane hit me and my friends caused my body to shake uncontrollably. Way back in the early 80s, as a young child, I was traveling with my family from Rome to Karachi, Pakistan. I can't remember all the details, but it was on an SAS flight that was code-shared with Thai Airlines. So the captain was Scandinavian, but the crew was Thai. Shortly after takeoff, another plane landing had noticed that our tires had burst and transmitted the information to the control tower, who then passed it on to us. The pilot got on the PA system and calmly informed us of the situation, and said that there was a much greater risk landing immediately on a full fuel tank, and so he proposed to continue with the scheduled flight plan. Everyone on the flight was convinced that this was it, so we traveled in complete silence like the ghosts that we believed we were destined to become. Everyone was completely preoccupied. I'm sure they were thinking about God, the incomplete lives they lived, families left behind, and probably how ephemeral life itself can be. On the entire 14-hour flight, there wasn't a single sound throughout the whole plane. No neighborly chatter, no movie, no in-flight service requests, nothing. Just row upon row of anxious, clenched faces, afraid to look at each other and show the palpable fear they all felt. Parents looked at their children with sad and loving eyes, heartbroken that their children won't grow up to enjoy full lives. The atmosphere was so heavy with gloom that the Thai flight attendants got together to sing beautiful Thai songs to lift everyone's spirits. It was a wonderful, spontaneous gesture and worked for a very brief period of time, but eventually everyone resumed brooding. After what seemed like days, we reached Karachi Airport and looked out the window to see scores of emergency vehicles lined up in endless rows around the runway. The bright collage of colors and lights were a grim reminder of what was to come. The captain came on the PA system and advised everyone that we would circle the airport until his tanks were almost empty before attempting to land. This stretched the ordeal out even longer. Suddenly, he came on and announced that we were going to land and everyone should brace for impact. With clenched eyes and bated breath, the runway came closer and closer. Then contact. 1 bounce, 2 bounces, and then the plane settled into a violently shuddering taxi. Afraid that the plane would split in two, no one dared look out the windows, and we continued like this for a little bit, until gradually, the plane slowed down, and then it got slower, and then it finally stopped. That was it. We were alive, and had landed on wheels that were missing tires. Everyone stood up with unconstrained joy, and gave the captain a standing ovation as he came out to check on us. The pilot was a real hero, bless him. We are eternally grateful. After that, we disembarked into airport buses like we would for a routine flight. And to be honest, after what we just went through, that felt a bit surreal.